I think we are live.
Ready to go?
Yes.
Yes.
I went back to the county screensaver. Did you take off the other pictures? Oh, there we go. Thank you very much. Okay, so we heads up, good to go? Is that a yes? Nodding heads, yes? Okay.
We are live.
How's everyone this morning? Well, I hope.
So far.
Too bad we had to fight this brutal weather to get to the meeting this morning, but other than that, it's all good. Okay. So with that, great to see you all. Look forward to a successful meeting this morning. So with that said, we'll bring the meeting to order. And Harry, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
You wait a second while I put the flag on.
Okay. Who are we waiting for to do?
Flag.
Flag.
I pledge allegiance to
To
the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America.
of America,
And
To the republic
Stands.
which stands one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
justice for all. Thank you. We'll have to work on that script for next time so we get it for our audience out there to see we're in unity here. Thank you, Harry.
Chair, speaking of scripts, let's go ahead and check in with Tammy, who is playing a bit hurt today, but I know her voice will make it through the meeting, and do a roll call for the benefit of the public.
Hey,
Okay.
Tammy, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing? Are you feeling better?
I'm doing good. Thank you for asking.
Okay, great to see you.
Thank you. Commissioner Salas,
Salas here.
Commissioner Desmond,
here.
Commissioner Vargas,
Vargas here.
Commissioner Kate,
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Here.
Commissioner Willis,
Here.
Commissioner Vanderlin,
Present.
Commissioner Mathis.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner McNamara.
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Anderson is absent. Alternate Commissioner Juan Wilpert is absent. There's a virtual quorum with 8 present.
Thank you very much.
Nobody,
Okay,
not that it really matters, but nobody called my name.
Please forgive me.
But you know I'm here.
it does matter.
Commissioner Wells.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
All
That's okay.
present accounted for? Okay. Holly, you're here, I see, yes? Okay, cool. All right. Agenda review, do you have anything, Keen?
I do, and good morning, Commissioners, your Executive Officer, Keen Simon. So, Commission, the agenda as provided, there are no changes, and that, of course, includes incorporating our earlier announcement from last week that we are canceling item 6B. That's the proposed reorganization up in Palma Valley due to a noticing issue. We are remedying that noticing issue as we speak, and so I would anticipate bringing that back to the Commission in April. That said, I do want to take this opportunity, Commission, to remind our viewing public on our live stream that we are set up in this virtual format once again to take public comment, whether it be through the pre-registration of phone calls or emails in real time. Instructions on how to participate in today's meeting provided both on the agenda face sheet as well as the LAFCO homepage. So those comments noted, Chair, we are good to go.
Okay, Commissioner, do you have any changes for the agenda? No?
No.
Tammy, do we have any registered speakers today?
None, Chair.
None at this time, okay.
No.
All right. So I presume there's no public, but is there any public online today that would like to speak to any items not on the agenda this morning?
Yeah, so let's check in now with Erica. Erica is manning our inbox. So Erica, any email comments of a general sort for the commission?
None so far.
We are good to go, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go to the consent items now, which can be taken all in one motion, or we can pull one or all of them. So what are your thoughts there, Commission?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendars 5A through 5E.
Kate, second.
Okay, any discussion then on the consent items? Here's seeing none, all of those in favor. Well, no, we'll do a roll call, I guess. So roll call, Tammy?
Commissioner Wells,
Yes.
Commissioner Vanderlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Aye.
Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas,
Vargas, yes.
Commissioner Desmond,
Yes.
Commissioner Salas.
Yes.
So we have 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 6A. Do we have a staff report on this, Keen?
We do, and in fact, I will give the staff report. So this public hearing, 6A, is for the commission to take the first of 2 formal steps in game planning for the upcoming fiscal year. And that involves today considering this draft resolution that you have in your packet that would do on its own 2 things. First, it would approve a draft work plan to direct your resources in 21-22. And then separately, it would approve a draft budget to fund those directed resources over that 12-month period. And I am using commission draft interchangeably with preliminary or proposed. The common denominator, if you will, is that this is one of 2 steps. Whatever you approve today, we will then send out for a formal public review and comment period. And that includes checking in with our 80 or so funding agencies, and then come back to you certainly no later than the deadline in statute of June, but I'm guessing in our May meeting with a final version, a final draft, a final work plan and a final budget. So this is the first of 2 steps. So with that kind of path noted, what I would suggest, Chair, is that I take 10 minutes or so and walk the commission through both of these items in terms of broad strokes. And then at the end, as you open up the public hearing, I'm certainly ready to go into some details as the commission and or if anyone from the public has some specific inquiries. And I'm guessing when we get to the budget, there will be some specific inquiries. But for purposes of broad strokes, let me start off with the draft work plan. And you can go ahead and move the slide, I think, to the next page. Very good. So before you, and starting in earnest, I believe on page 85 of your agenda packet, is a draft work plan. And this is my effort as your executive officer in thinking about all of the things that perhaps we should be devoting resources to in 21-22. And so I've come up with 30 projects, okay? 30 projects I believe merit your time and resources in 21-22. Now, they're not all equal, and that goes to the issue of priority listing. And so not only am I bringing you projects for you to say yes or no to, and perhaps swap out as you see fit, I'm also asking that the commission decide if the priority levels and rankings that I'm offering sync up with your own preferences. And again, with the opportunity to go into some detail, what I want to do is just focus a little bit on what we call our top 10. And so the top 10 are those 10 projects of the 30 that I say to you probably merit our most significant and substantive efforts in accomplishing. Now, some of them are going to look familiar to you, Commission. Some of them are items that are already underway, but for various reasons, right? We haven't been able to complete, and I don't think we'll be able to complete by the end of this June. So I'm recommending that we carry them forward. A good example is we have a handful of service reviews in North County, like the Fallbrook Rainbow region that we still need to work on. You will also see, Commission, a handful of new items in that top 10. For example, drawing from your earlier conversation and direction in December, we're proposing that we sponsor a legislative fix and all the groundwork that goes into it to remedy a state statute that outlines our responsibility at LAFCO in overseeing outside service extensions. And again, I'd be happy to go into detail there, but that's one new prominent addition to our top 10. Another one is to expand on the outreach that we started over the last few years in terms of expanding and proactively start to translate some of our core documents, whether they be executive summaries in our municipal service reviews or other items, into Spanish. As it was really a first level attempt to broaden our outreach, and perhaps future years we could explore expanding our translation proactively into other languages based on some criteria that the Commission sees fit. But at least going into 21-22, work on translating core documents into Spanish. So again, that's the flavor of the work plan. Let's talk now about the budget, and you can go ahead and turn the slide. And so the budget begins, I believe, on page 87 in earnest in your work, in your agenda packet. It very much represents a status quo, Commission, in that we are really just trying to transition and forward our level of services right now to next year. We're doing our best, however, and this is going to be a key thing going forward in this item, to rein in our costs. So we certainly are aware of the financial condition and stresses of our funding agencies. To that end, you will see in the budget there are no increases in salary, wages for staff. In fact, we are proposing that we eliminate or at least suspend a previously planned cost of living adjustment for all staff. We're also tightening our belt on certain services and supplies. But at the end of the day, the draft budget I'm bringing to you still does contemplate an increase of 1.3%, which is about $26,000, and would mean, Commission, the annual cost to run LAFCO would go from $1,916,000 this year to about $1,942,000 next year. Now, where's that increase really being driven from? There are contractual rises or increases in our employee benefits, specifically pension and group insurance costs that we haven't fully accounted for in our belt tightening. That's really the reason for the increase before you. Now, the other side of the ledger, our revenues. We are proposing a matching amount of revenues, so they would also go up by 1.3%. But there's an important internal distinction. I am proposing, Commission, that you manufacture a savings for our funding agencies, right? Our funding agencies, for the most part, are generally always responsible for about 90% of the cost of LAFCO, right? That other 10%, well, it's our application fees or earnings on interest. This year, again, because of the COVID impacts that are going on, the draft budget before you would take about 20% of your existing unassigned monies in your fund, which overall is about 10% of the fund balance. But take 20% of your unassigned monies and incorporate it into the budget as offsetting revenues, and therefore reduce the amount of invoices or invoicing that would otherwise go to the county, to the city of San Diego, to the other 17 cities, and to about 60 independent districts. And the result is their share of the LAFCO budget would not be going up in step with the 1.3% overall change. In fact, their share would go down about 3.4 or 3.7%. I have to look at my notes to be exact. So, Commission, a couple of questions for you as you take this item in. First is, what is your comfort level with using the amount of reserves proposed and for this use of decreasing the share of agency contributions in 21-22? Perhaps more holistically, Commission, what is your comfort level in approving a budget that does have an overall increase, albeit modest at 1.3%? Nevertheless, it is an increase. Your staff has certainly been thinking a lot about this, and we've talked to a number of representatives from our funding agencies and understanding their own concerns. We have done something a little different in bringing you a draft budget this year, and that is to contemplate a couple of alternatives if that's where the commission wants to go. One alternative that is in your agenda report is what would it mean for LAFCO to zero out and have a 0% change budget. Another alternative would be what would it mean for the commission to actually reduce the budget by 5%. Now, why did I use 5%? Well, that was just the number that sounded better than, let's say, 10%. So those two alternatives, right, they're broadly discussed in the agenda report, but they are more detailed in terms of quantifying the numbers in a supplement that I sent the commission yesterday that I believe is posted to the website. And again, I can go into some detail on that as well. So those are some questions for the commission when it comes to our budget. And you can remove this, the PowerPoint at this point. The last thing that I want to point out is there is a separate recommendation that is before the commission that is not directly tied to the work plan or the budget, but indirectly certainly ties into that. And you can go ahead and remove the PowerPoint presentation so the commission can see one another. And that is a recommendation from your staff, me, asking for you to green light myself and Holly working on developing an early employee separation plan for the reasons that we note in the report. And again, I'm ready to go into some more details. And if the commission is comfortable with that, we would bring back something more brick and mortar for you to actually act on at the next meeting. But the question would be, are you comfortable with just the idea of LAFCO going down this path first and foremost? So I may have gone over 10 minutes, Chair, but hopefully it was worth it. This is a public hearing, ready to go into details as you see fit. And so I will turn this item back to the chair.
Questions?
Yes, Barry.
Yeah, Keen, pardon me, Keen, so the recommended 1.3% means no increase for salaries, you said?
Yes.
Okay, there's question number one. Question number two, it says, you said using 10% of reserves. What is that dollar amount?
145,000.
Oh, I see it. Okay. I see that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Jim.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a question. Keen, you say the agency contributions are set to decrease by 3.7%. Have the agencies all requested membership reductions? You say they're set to decrease. Is this a formula decrease, or what's going on with the reduction in fees from the member agencies?
So a couple of things, Commissioner Desmond, through the chair. The overall decrease in the agency contributions would be achieved by the commission agreeing with my recommendation to utilize about 20% of your unassigned monies in reserves. The actual formula, okay, as to how the individual agencies are invoiced is actually found in state law, and we don't actually send out the invoices, but in short, state law says that the County of San Diego and then the special districts and then the cities, less the city of San Diego, all pay 28% roughly of the LAFCO budget. The city of San Diego separately, because it has a special dedicated seat on LAFCO, is responsible for about 14% of the LAFCO budget. So whatever the number is, if you set the budget at 100 million, 14 million goes to the city of San Diego, 28 million would go to the county, 28 million would go and get divided up among the 17 other cities, and the 60 independent districts would divvy up 28 million.
So you're not recommending a decrease in the fees. You're just saying because our budget is less, then the fee amount is less. So you're not really recommending we decrease fees. Is that correct?
I am recommending that you decrease the contribution total. So, it may be helpful, and I appreciate, bear with me a second, but if you're looking at your packet, I believe I'm on page 88 of your packet, you will see a line item accounting of our revenues. And in there, you will see under, we have 4 sources of revenues: intergovernmental revenues, service charges, earnings, and miscellaneous. In this fiscal year, Commissioner Desmond, we ultimately invoiced the affected or the funding agencies $1,693,700. What I'm proposing is that next year, by using reserves, we decrease the amount of money that we would ultimately be invoicing to the agencies by $62,552 to $1.6 million.
I guess I get that. How you're I guess moving the money around. I get that, how you're backfilling it with reserves. I'm just wondering why the decrease. Why are you recommending a decrease in what I guess agencies are already paying into? What did the agencies request a decrease, or what's the impetus for the reduction in what the agencies pay us?
So the recommendation for me to manufacture a decrease goes to the economic condition of the agencies and the informal discussions I've had with representatives from the cities that it's a tough time out there, and if LAFCO can do its part, we should explore it.
Okay, all right, I'll take that. So then the reserves, I think, what do we have, a 33% to reserve policy of the budget, and and then I guess, are we going to be able to recoup, I guess, to our reserve level? Are we going to dip below it? Are we going to recoup? And then if so, how are we going to recoup those reserve levels if we're going below our minimum number of amount that we need in the reserves, or we've set the policy at?
Yeah, so we don't dip below, but we get pretty close in this formula. So right now, we're about our unassigned monies equal about 40-something% of our operating cost. If the commission were to go through with this draft budget and ultimately it makes its way through a final budget, and our estimates for the end of this year hold, we would be getting to about 35% or so, right? And Commissioner Desmond's correct. Commission, you previously set a floor as to always having enough in unassigned monies to cover 4 months of our operating costs. Now, the question of how do we plan on recouping this? Well, ideally, over the next year or two, we will actually achieve some budgeted savings by coming in with more revenues than actual expenses. And if you look at the bottom of our page 88 again, going back to this document, you'll see last year we actually had a net surplus of $143,000. So it is certainly possible and or probable that we will start generating that reserve allocation back. But there are moving parts this year, so I don't want to commit to saying that we'll get it back in a year or two, because there are other factors that are in play. For example, we have a bit of a variable with our office lease, but
Okay.
the idea is we get it back.
I guess we're not going to dip below the 33%. So I guess that kind of answers my question. If we're not going to dip, that's fine. And then my last question is, on the no increase, staff is not recommending the no increase budget, but it is an option in there. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Joe?
I have a couple questions, or actually a comment, regarding the reduction in appropriations for each of the funding entities. And when you run the numbers, I question the optics of reducing by only 3.7%. So let's say it's 4%, and yet having to double what we have taken out of reserves to balance the budget over the last couple of years. Once that 3.7 is gone, it's going to take a while to recuperate. So kind of to Supervisor Desmond's comment that where are we with our 33% reserve? We're close to it, but next year, if history is the same, we're still going to be taking out $70,000, give or take, out of reserve. So we're going to hit that 33% real quick. And running the numbers, I think you're looking at, for the county, they would save about $17,000 with that 3%, 4% reduction. And I'm sorry, but I'll ask the county commissioners, I'm sorry, but I haven't looked to see what your budget is today. I know I looked at what the appropriations are for our special districts, and one of the districts that pays the most, they'd save $1,800, but they've got a $120 million budget. So the optics aren't there, I don't think, for getting the headlines that we reduced the cities and the counties and the city of San Diego's appropriations by less than 4%. But I think the optic is going to be that we have doubled taking out of the reserves than what we have historically. And we'll never make that up. And as our executive officer said, we have some unknowns. From our discussions, my discussions with him, we don't know what's going to happen with our space. There's concerns that we may not have a lease with the county. And if that's the case, how much is it going to cost to get a site functional? Your tenant improvements, aren't cheap. So that's going to have to come out of reserve because it's not budgeted for. We have 56,133 in the Cortese knots that we are starting to do our own lobbying and pushing that bill, or trying to find an author and get that moving so that those changes can be made in CKH, and that's not going to be a cheap endeavor. So I'm concerned about what we have out there that are unknowns dollar-wise, but we know they're there. We just don't know how big that elephant really is or is going to be. So I can't support the reduction. Sounds good, looks good, but when you start running numbers and become fiscally responsible, I can't support that. I can support no increase. And if you increased it up to 3%, where you're still having to take out, if you increase appropriations, you're still having to take out $36,000 out of reserves. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
So just to clarify, Joe, are you saying you do support the recommended one?
No, I do not.
Oh, you're not? Oh, okay.
I do not. I support the budget up until you get to the appropriations. I do not support reducing the appropriations from last year's budget by 3.7%. I would support status quo, but you're still taking out $82,000 out of reserves.
So you're saying the 0% option.
If it was 0%, no. The expenses stay the same. I don't think those can be cut. I think Keene has done an excellent job in making those cuts. But unless you're starting to, lay off employees or furlough, as he referred to, I don't think there's a whole lot there. Other than if we can stay with the county and they're willing to reduce some of their costs, because if you look at what we're paying to the county, I think in last year's, I can't remember this month's financial statement, but it was in last month's statement that the comment was in the staff report that 4/5 of our expenditures for the month were to the county. So.
Okay, are there any other comments on Joe's comments? Okay, if not, I've forgotten your name. I'm sorry, on top. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the comments that have been made, and to Mr. Desmond, if you're looking for a request to reduce fees, I'll happily make one on behalf of the city of San Diego, considering our budget position right now as a city. But I do support what Commissioner McKenzie said. I'm not there yet on have a 5% reduction in this proposed budget, but I would not support having an increase in the budget. I just can't do conscious, despite the relationship between the amounts of money between this budget and the city of San Diego as a member, and what the proportions are from a principled standpoint. There's no way that I, as a elected official for the city of San Diego, coming to here could support increasing the budget, considering where other municipalities are and other public agencies are at this point. So I would not support an increase in the budget. I'm fine with a zeroing or zero increase in the budget, but I can't support an increase. I do have a question, Keene, in terms of your proposal to start working on some type of buyout provision, early retirement position, and what will go into that, and what are potential options that could exist with something like that?
Thank you, Commissioner Cade, and through the chair. So in broad strokes, what I've been discussing with Commission Counsel Holly Watley is the idea that we find an appropriate measurement or number of to compensate an employee who perhaps may be choosing to leave on their own anyway in the next 1 or 3 years, offer a financial buyout to jumpstart that process, and in the interim, be able to show at least not a cost increase this year. That would be a bottom line, but then to focus in on the cost savings that go in year 2 and onward. It's again something that we haven't, I use the phrase brick and mortar, we haven't gone too far into the analysis other than just the broad parameters of figuring out if there's an opportunity where there's a win-win for those who are perhaps thinking of leaving on their own, if we can incentivize that through a buyout of an appropriate number. And that would be part of the commission discussion when we bring that back to you as to what your comfort level is. X dollars for every year of service perhaps is the calculation in our mind. With no promise that an actual, any employee might take it up, but at least it gives us a position where if 1 or more employees take it up, we certainly have a lot more flexibility going forward in years 2 and on.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I understand that, and other public agencies do that as a way to remove some of the benefit costs off their balance sheet, because that's a large increase that, or a large portion of the budget that's always increasing and it's never decreasing. So I get that, and I would be very much supportive of you investigating that and bringing something back to us. One more question in relation to comment by Commissioner McKenzie in terms of the lease space and office space and whatnot. I would argue probably now is the right time to go into market and start looking at leases and negotiating free rents and TIs and the like, given that probably not a lot of folks are taking advantage of that right now. But remind me again that it's the timeline of the current lease. I think it was commented on at the last meeting, but the timeline of the current lease space with the county right now and what that's looking like.
So thank you, Commissioner Kate, through the chair. So our lease ends with the county after 10 years on August 21st of this year. We actually have an item at the end of this agenda that will take up perhaps a committee approach to developing a timeline, but it would certainly seem reasonable to me that we would want to have a firm idea of what we're doing no later than June, given if we are leaving, there are the mechanics of furnishings. As Commissioner McKenzie and Vanderlyn know from their earlier days at LAFCO, the only thing we actually own at LAFCO literally is our flowers and some picture frames. Everything else is the county. So there would have to be some discussion about how to furnish LAFCO, and perhaps also take into account, you have a telecommuting policy that's coming up, how that might change our office needs. So it is a variable.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then, Mr. Chair, you need to do public comment before you entertain a motion. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, we haven't opened the public hearing yet. So thank you, Mr. Kate. Any other questions or comments right now? Just a couple of things from me. I'm sorry, does someone else have something?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Vargas. I actually was interested in supporting the executive director's recommendation because as I look at the information, and I don't know if this is where we talk about the actual work plan. I know we're only focusing right now on the budget, but I'm interested in actually talking about the priorities in the work plan, and there's a lot happening here, right? And particularly, I wanted to address the making it a higher priority to really talk about environmental justice and for it to be added as a higher priority. Right now, it's a little bit towards the bottom, and I know that I wanted to find out how long has it been a requirement at LAFCO. I know that it's important for us, I think, to look at it from this perspective. Communities of color, particularly, who have been on the front lines of environmental pollution and the climate crisis, have a long history of injustices and inequities, and so I really appreciate seeing that it was listed in the previous years' work plans as a priority, but I feel that it needs to be moved up a little, especially after hearing from Mr. Keene about where we are and how we're moving forward. So I really do feel we need a necessary commitment to address environmental justice policies in the region, especially for our frontline communities. And so I am interested in moving that forward in terms of specifically on the work plan. And then on the budget, and I should know this, but we have you said a 33% reserve, right? And in my experience, and I have served on numerous boards and commissions, manage billions of dollars, and reserves are to be used to help us during challenging times. And so it seems to me the recommendations are not some that are going to be putting us in a situation where we're going to be in a hole, but instead it's going to help us get to where we need to be so that we can really address the number of policies and issues that we have as an organization. And so I would actually propose supporting the executive director's recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments then? Just a couple comments from me. One is the early out plan, if you want to call it that. I think the PD and others do call it the drop plan for their employees. I've seen the draft of that Keene is working on. I think it's definitely worth looking at. It has a lot of merit for both the employees as well as our organization. So, and as far as the reduction, Keene, is that meant to be substantive or is it meant to be more of a visual? We feel your pain kind of an adjustment.
Fair comment, Chair. It is optics, but there is substance certainly to us. $145,000 is a number for us, but it is an optic recognition that I felt comfortable bringing forward. I still feel comfortable bringing forward, but as others on the commission have discussed, it is reserves. You ultimately decide how you want to use the reserves. I will offer up a bit of context in that whatever budget and work plan you approve today, I mentioned that we're going to go through a public review and comment period. That includes going before our special districts advisory committee meeting in a few weeks, and then our cities advisory committee meeting. They will certainly probably provide some further input on the process, but I can just double down on this idea that Commissioner Kate had mentioned. I am aware that there are city members or city funding members of LAFCO who would like to see a decrease, and perhaps a 0% is a good alternative to actually going below the Mendoza line.
Okay, have you had any feedback, or is this information out in the community at all? So we might
No,
be
it's just me discussing it somewhat informally, because again, without the commission input, the way we do the budget here is a bit of a black box. I present the budget to you today, and this is your first opportunity to look at it. And then whatever you do today and the inputs you give me, that's when I will then have something substantive to relay the agencies.
Can you remind me of the process that established the 4-month operating as our baseline for reserve?
So about 2 years ago, in the course of reviewing our financial policies, there was a long discussion that ultimately produced this decision that for an agency our size, 3 months would be a minimum amount of monies that we should have on hand. You will also see in the budget, or excuse me, in the document, there are all of your money, Commission, is unrestricted, right? There is no legal restraints on you. So you have also developed policies in which you create commission committed funds, right? So you have a stabilization fund, an opportunity fund. In many ways, it parallels the city of San Marcos's policies. At the time, they were developing or redefining their policies, and we thought it looked good. So, you can also speak to what you would view as a stabilization. This very well could be also viewed as a stabilization effort given COVID. So you could also direct staff not to draw from unassigned monies, but use your stabilization fund for purposes of subsidizing funding agency contributions in the next year.
So overall, our budget and finances are pretty solid. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you are having a discussion of options because you are well placed because of prior financial management. So this is a result of your successes that certainly predate me.
Okay, thank you. Now we have other options if we needed to reduce the budget, memberships and so on, that we haven't been considered yet.
Well, I mean, you can reduce your operating expenses. That would have
my question.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Yes, Joe.
I had a question of Commissioner Vargas. Which numbers were you? I couldn't follow what you were saying. Which line items in the work plan you thought should be moved up?
Item number 20, the environmental justice. It's a number 20. It's number 20 right now, and I would like to encourage us to move it up as a priority. It's been part of it's been on the list in the last work plans. I mean, before. So I want to just make sure that it's also included, especially because as a county and cities, we're all looking at environmental justice as a perspective, and it seems like it's a moderate versus high moderate.
Okay, that was.
Because I'm new to the process, I'm not really sure. Do I ask a request? I'm not really sure how you move it up. So how do you prioritize it?
Okay, what do you say, Keen?
So that input is exactly how I would go about adjusting this. So if there is general consensus from Commissioner Vargas's comment to move up what is currently item 20, environmental justice, I certainly would identify an opportunity or a way to move it into at least the high moderate category and either just expand that list or perhaps move an item down, perhaps, looking at the 22-23 work plan budget, not that that's not a high priority, but you're going to do it no matter what I say under state law. So we could move that around. So the inputs that you provide allow me then to move these into the categories. I probably would say this, not to pay too much attention to the physical numbering, but the category, right? So right now, environmental justice is a moderate priority. I think the question, and I'll ask this through the chair to Commissioner Vargas, and if you would like to see it as a high moderate or a high priority.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I understand that it's been LAFCO policy, but it hasn't really been on the priorities for the actual work plans. And it just seems to me that, I think as a county, we have always been at the forefront of these issues. And I think it would behoove us to do the same here.
And just for the benefit of context, Chair, this is important for the commission, the viewing public. So and Holly could correct me, I think sometime in 2008, the list of boundary or factors that LAFCO is to consider anytime we move a boundary expanded to include environmental justice. And I'll be the first to admit that that's not something that staff has put a whole lot of effort into addressing. So for example, if you look back at our agenda item for the Lakeside proposal in this packet, there's a pretty generic comment offered up on environmental justice because we just don't know how to address it. Through a policy establishment, you would then tell us what are the issues you want us to look at, because admittedly to date, we've kind of punted on it.
Okay, thank you, Keen. Commissioner Vargas, does that get close to what you'd like to see come back?
That would be great. I think, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Chair,
Yes.
if you don't mind. Yeah, I'd like to support Ms. Vargas on the recommendation of moving up the environmental justice piece up on the priority list. I know that we have been really struggling in the county to meet our goals, and that anything that we can do, at least to support the thought that we need to move forward quicker on this area, is something that I think that this board should really consider.
Okay, thank you. Keen, it sounds like we have at least a quick blush consensus then. Okay, anything else on that before we open the, yes, Joe, I'm sorry.
I just have a real quick question of Keen. On item number 10, the audit, how long has our present auditor been on the job?
Our present auditor is working on their second audit. They have a contract that we renew or could renew for another 2 audit years. So at most, there's a 4-year window, and they're approaching the halfway point.
Okay, so this is high on the priority list, but it's one of those that will be done very quickly.
We have, the first year we had the new auditor, the second year's COVID. The reason why I moved this up to high priority is my signal to everyone at staff, it's really a staff directive, to get our audits done a lot sooner than they are. So that's why at the end of the description was get the audit to the commission by December of this year.
Okay.
But we can certainly move that around. I am hearing consensus that environmental justice is a high priority. And while I like to say top 10, given my fandom of David Letterman, it could be a top 11 too. There's no hard rule on that.
Well, since you like the top 10, I don't see any issue with moving the audit down to number 11 and environmental justice up to item number 10. Then you have your top 10, because the audit's going to be done and signed and off of your plate rather quickly.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. And commissioners, if you have, excuse me, Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. I just got a quick question. I know Commissioner Kate, you had asked for the reduction, and I'm looking at the numbers here. It's a $10,000 reduction in annual reduction for the city of San Diego in agency fees. Is that correct?
Yes.
So,
Closer to 8,000.
so
Again, my issue is not with, and I said this in my comments, is not necessarily in the dollar value of everything, but I am not, like other boards that I serve on that are outside the city of San Diego, I am not advocating for an increase in budget in any of those agencies for the mere fact that I don't think it's appropriate to do so, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in, and whether that's $8,000 to us or $1,000 to another agency. For me, I'm not going to be advocating for budget increase in any agency, any outside agency that I serve on.
well, it's not so much about the budget, but I guess it's more about the decrease. I guess I'm talking more about the decrease in the apportionment. If it stayed the same, you'd be at 243. So that would be, I guess I'm just talking about the reduction of the agencies, the outside agencies, and what they're giving. And I just wanted to see what the reduction would be for the city of San Diego, and it's $10,000. So, and I know $10,000 is a lot in some places and not so much in another, but if it stayed the same, instead of the 3.7 reduction, so 3.7% is a $10,000 reduction for the city of San Diego, I guess is what I was trying to verify.
Okay, do we have a clear message on that, Jill?
Yeah, just for clarification, the expenses are a negative, a reduction in by 1.3%. So we're reducing the expenditures. So now we have the question of how do we fund those expenditures, and how much are we comfortable with taking out of our, taking out of our reserves. And the stabilization fund is $250,000. And we're proposing to take out, I think it's a total of about $145,000. Now, yes, you can move money around, but is that a prudent, fiscally prudent move to do that? So I would like to stay with staff's recommendation on the expenses of a negative 1.3, and to stay with the appropriation dollars as of the 2021 budget, which would be no increase in appropriations to any of the funding agencies.
I'm sorry, you said negative 1.3, but I thought it was a 1.3% increase.
No, it's
Commissioner Willis is correct. So the draft recommended budget.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Okay, any further discussion here? Keen, do you have enough direction to proceed on the budget?
Assuming that that a motion is carried, what I'm hearing is proceed with the recommended actions identified as alternative 1, with the adjustment in the budget to reduce our amount of reserve use back down to prior years, 72,600. And then that amount that we are reducing from reserves goes back into the agency apportionments and would generate a small, less than 1%, but would generate somewhat of a small incremental increase. Although I probably could figure out a way, given the tenor of the discussion, to find a way to zero it out. And then the work plan would get adjusted to move up environmental justice to a high priority. That's what I'm hearing as the discussion from Commissioner McKenzie. Sure.
Is that the general direction we want Keen to go in?
Well, someone needs to make a
Well, we'll go into.
motion.
Open the public hearing first, then we'll come back and consider the motion. Okay, and
Thank you,
also, commissioners, you can contact Keen directly to talk specifically about any budget items that you may have now or come up with as you get further into the budget itself. Okay, with that said, we'll open the public hearing. And
Thank you, Chair. So let me check in with, I think, Tammy, let's just confirm, you said there were no pre-registered speakers for this item, correct?
Correct.
Very
There's
good.
no
And then,
registered speakers.
Erica, do we have any email comments generated as of now for this item?
Erica, can you hear?
Yep, I'm just checking.
Okay, sorry.
I don't have any email comments for this item.
Okay, so no public comment then. We'll close the public hearing. We'll come back in. Did someone want to consider a motion in terms of the direction for Keen regarding the budget? Joe?
Could we do this in several motions? Because I'd like to make a motion to approve the work plan for 2021 and have a top 10, which includes moving item number 20, policy establishment, environmental justice, from number 20 up to number 10, and let the audit slide down to item number 11.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so we'll consider the budget as a separate motion. Is that what you're saying? Okay,
Yeah,
all
I think it's going to be too convoluted.
got it.
Put it all into one.
With that said, does everyone understand the motion? Could you restate that for us, Joe?
Yes, I approve the proposed work plan for 2021 with the following changes, and that is to move number 20, policy establishment, environmental justice, up to number 10, and to move number 10, the 2020-2021 audit, down to number 11.
Thank you for restating that. Everyone understand what the motion is? Tammy, roll call vote, please.
Sorry, 1 second.
Oh, there you are. Thank you.
Commissioner Vanderlyn,
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas, I'm sorry,
Vargas, yes.
Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Alice, yes.
Commissioner Wells,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond.
Yes.
We have 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you. Now, a motion would be in order regarding the direction on the 2021 budget.
I'll make a motion that we approve the draft recommended 1.3% change in expenditures and to maintain the charges to the intergovernmental units to the 2020-21, the same as. Is that confusing enough?
Now, are we talking about a 1.3% increase? Or decrease?
That is the draft recommended
The budget as presented.
expenses of 1.3%, which is about $17,000 increase.
Okay, Commissioner Cates?
And that can basically probably be made up if you wanted, if this motion doesn't pass, that can probably be made up in your professional services and the miscellaneous IT that we paid, the 143 that we pay to the county for IT services. And then leave the appropriations for the county, the city, and the other 17 cities and the special districts at the 2020-21 budget year.
Okay.
No increase, no decrease.
Is there a second for that?
I just have one question.
Second first so we can discuss it.
Okay.
I'll second it, Desmond.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, go ahead, Barry.
Keen, on the intergovernmental, on the operating revenues, those are the numbers that are going to be, they are definitely going to be reduced by those amounts.
Yes.
Okay.
If the motion is approved, I'm hearing that you would want the same invoice that went to the agencies last year to go to the agencies this year. And if need be, we would just simply budget a bit of a deficit, but presumably make it up during the fiscal year and amend through professional services. That's what I heard.
Okay, so for instance, the County of San Diego is 483,000. Now it'll definitely be 466,508.
If that's what the commission directs, yes.
No,
Okay.
that's not my motion. My
Okay, let's clarify with
motion
that.
includes the fee, the intergovernmental units proportion to the county or the LAFCO budget be the same as what it was last year. No decrease, no increase. So the same invoices that were sent out last year, Keen's going to change the date on them and put 2021 and ship them out to the agencies.
That's why I asked for clarification, because I thought that's what you were saying, Joe. So,
Okay.
Okay, so we understand what the
What I
motion.
think I'm saying and what comes across are two different things.
Okay, Keen, is that clear to you what the direction would be?
It is clear, and I know that Commissioner Kate did want to make a comment.
Yes, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
go ahead, Chris.
Chris, you must be
Trying to
muted.
find my unmute button. Okay, so understanding that the motion to not just keep zero out the revenues for each of the individual intergovernmental units. I'm just curious, you get that 3 points or the actual, how much is that? If you
It's
zero it out, or additional $80,000 or $60,000 or so in revenue from the staff's recommended change, is there? How would you account for that increase in revenue, Keen? Because that's an increase over than what you originally recommended.
Well, so what I understand to be is that we would zero out the percentage, any percentage change in the invoices. So we'd be collecting not the 1.631 million from the agency as provided in your agenda packet, but instead the 1.693 million. And then the difference would then be replenishing the fund balance.
Okay.
The number to balance the budget would be less than 145,000. It'd be somewhere around 82,000 that we would be taking out of reserves. Is that about right, King? Give or take?
Yeah, and keep in mind, I can, the direction is pretty clear on the outcome objectives here. I can fine tune the numbers, and then you will see this version again come May for final approval. And you will also then get the opportunity to get the cities, districts, and the counties' comments should they choose to provide comments at that time. So this is an opportunity for you to give me what your comfort level is now, subject to a formal public review and comment period to come.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, where was the question from?
Oh, I'm gonna wait till
Oh,
Commissioner.
I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
Supervisor Vargas. I'll just say I'm fine with that so long as there's not an increase in the fees that are passed along to the units. I'm fine with that, and I'll wait. I'll reserve final judgment until we hear back from everybody. Thank you. Sorry, Supervisor Vargas.
Oh, no problem. So I just want a clarification. So this wouldn't prevent us for Keen to actually go in and look at the opportunities of incentive plans for separating folks from retirement and really looking for a long-term savings, right? That would still continue. I just want clarification on that.
Thank you, through the chair, Commissioner Vargas. So that I think would be taken up as a separate motion to come unless the maker of the motion, Mackenzie, wants to add it.
No.
Okay.
I like to keep that motion as clean as possible.
Got it.
Okay.
It's confusing enough.
So we're good to go to vote then? Thank you for this discussion. It's gone on a little bit. I think it's very important that you understand what the budget's going to be like. And as Keen said, when it comes back, we will have an opportunity to look at the budget again. Plus, that will be the public hearing, Keen, right? With all our funding.
Yes, no, it will be part of a second public hearing, and I'm pretty sure you'll get some comments from some of the agencies, and so the
Yeah, I was gonna say,
might be
are
more
we gonna
robust.
get kickback from the agencies on keeping the fees the same?
Yeah, we'll find out. Okay, roll call vote, please, Tammy.
Sorry, 1 second. Commissioner Desmond,
Aye.
Commissioner Wells,
Yes.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Aye.
Commissioner Kate,
Aye.
Commissioner Vargas,
Vargas, aye.
Commissioner Vanderlyn.
Yes.
We have 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Okay. Thank you, Commission. That was a pretty healthy discussion, I thought. So we're finished with the 6A now.
Well, actually, Chair, before, would there be a willingness to go ahead with another motion if there, again, is interest on green lighting, staff developing an early separation plan for presentation and action at a future meeting?
That's what I want.
So moved.
Second.
Who made a motion?
I heard Commissioner Kate and Commissioner Vargas.
Okay. Any discussion on that? You understand what we're voting on? I presume that we are. So roll call vote, please, Tammy.
Commissioner Vanderlyn,
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas,
Yes.
Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Wells,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond.
Yes.
So we have 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Thank you, Keen, for walking us through that discussion. I thought it'd be very helpful, and I really appreciate that you brought forward the, whatever we're going to call it, the incentive early retirement plan, because I think that'll be important for us to look at and to have it specifically on the agenda. So nothing else on 6A then?
Correct.
Okay. The next public hearing item is, I'm sorry, next business calendar item is 7A, B, and C can be taken all at once or voted on separately. What's your pleasure?
Well, actually, Chair, we do have staff presentations on these, unless you'd like to waive them. But I know Priscilla is in the queue, ready to talk. 7A is telework, and 7B is social media. And if it's okay, could we could take up 7A now?
Yes, sorry, I was going over that. Sorry, Priscilla, didn't mean to leave you behind. Let's go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. It was very well written. I thought you did a great job on that.
Thank you. So I do have a presentation for you all this morning. So good morning, Commission. And to all of those of you who are joining us on our YouTube. But if you could just put up that presentation for me so I can begin. Thank you. So to begin, the items I'll be presenting today involve 2 proposed policy additions. The first item I'm going to review on the screen is 7A, and this is the proposed telecommute policy. The second item I'll be reviewing is agenda item 7B, and that will be the proposed addition for a social media use policy. So LAFCO's interest and aim with these two policy additions is not only to address these pertinent topics that we're currently facing, but to also have our policies reflect the sign of the times. So beginning with this first item, the proposed addition to personnel policies in rule number 6, this will expand and formalize recent practices and authorizes the executive officer to extend telework privileges to eligible employees on a regular or situational basis. We believe that this addition would have made its way to the commission sooner rather than later, just given societal changes. However, we also believe this is a natural progression as COVID has come into our lives and has had some extended effects to our workplace activities, and now has jumped onto our current work plan and makes the topic more timely. So since the beginning of the transition to telework practices, we've learned a few lessons along the way. And so we have a good system in place, one in which work is being done both efficiently and effectively through telecommuting. The proposed addition does put the commission on record in formally accommodating and encouraging telecommuting and its intrinsic benefits to employees. But we do believe it's important to have prescribed parameters in doing so. And so today I'll be highlighting 3 of those. The first being that telecommuting is a signed agreement or contract between the executive officer and the eligible employee. So this is an earned privilege, and eligibility would be determined not only by the job position, but also by job performance. In addition to this being an earned privilege, it's a part-time privilege. So we do not mean to replace regular office attendance under normal conditions, and it would be limited to no more than 50% of total work hours during the fiscal year. There would also be different allowances for different positions. So for professional employees, they'd be eligible for regular or reoccurring telework, while support staff would be eligible for situational telework, meaning as needed. The policy would also address the current outlier where everyone would transition to 100% telework under a public stay-at-home order, unless the executive officer requires otherwise in conducting essential services. So with that, you have our first proposed addition as formally accommodating and encouraging telework under prescribed parameters that are detailed within the policy. And before moving on to the second item, does anyone have any questions on this first policy?
It's one question is, are we already doing this and we're just making this written now?
So currently we are practicing telework. Support staff is coming into the office provided with parameters with COVID. So this would just make it a more formal policy where, again, we're addressing that we're formally accommodating and encouraging telework.
Are there any other questions for Priscilla? Okay. Why don't we just take this as a separate motion right now? Would someone want to make a motion for approval of the?
I make a motion. Direct Commissioner Willis, I make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
If I may, you want to just check for the record if you have any public comments.
Okay, thank you, Holly, for pulling me back in line here. I appreciate that. Erica, do we have any public comment?
Was Erica Tammy? Oh.
I have not received any email comments for this item.
Okay, Tammy, do you have anything?
No, I have not received any.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Roll call vote on the motion then, please.
Commissioner Vanderlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas,
Vargas, yes.
Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie, Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Wells,
Yes.
Commissioner Desmond.
Yes.
It's 8 in favor, 0 opposed. The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Go on to the next item, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair. So moving on to the next item, I'll be going over the proposed addition to the administrative policy, which addresses accommodating social media use to expand outreach and engaging the public. This addition comes by way of the adopted work plan and something that has been recommended by both the special districts and cities advisory committees. The proposed addition draws and benefits from a running start. So we're dipping our toes in social media. We do have some that we've established, one being the YouTube channel that we're live on currently. We're also using Twitter, Facebook, and most recently, Instagram. And so we're learning more about the features most suitable to what we want to communicate by trying these. The proposed addition does represent a dual approach, and we believe that this will allow us to evolve in real time as needed. So the first would be a macro approach, and this would be the commission formally approving social media uses and establishing broad standards and expectations. And this is where social media use and duties are being formally handed off to the executive officer and his designees. And then we have our micro approach, and this is where the executive officer and designees would take the ball in managing and creating content, and would include developing guidelines and standards as we go along and drawing on best practices for specific social media networks. However, keeping it nimble enough to allow us to quickly evolve just as quickly as social media evolves. So with that, Commission, you've heard this social media use policy addition, proposed policy addition, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or address any comments or concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Priscilla? Yes, Joe.
I just have a quick question. Who and how often are all of these new categories, social media, how are they going to be monitored by staff? Because if they're not monitored almost on a daily basis, it's not a good thing. And more and more in every conference and every breakout session they have on utilizing social media, that they really need to be monitored, and they're not of the benefit that you thought they were going to be if they aren't being monitored on a highly regular basis. So that was my question. And
absolutely, and that's an
outside person monitoring these.
Right. So, and that's a great question. So currently I am the person he has designated, our executive officer, Keen, has designated to monitor. And so I'm doing that daily on a regular basis. Creating content isn't daily, but creating content is a week thing that I do. And so it's important, as you said, for us to monitor, and that is done daily on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All those notifications come to my phone. And so as soon as a notification comes through that someone has engaged with any of our posts or commented, then I look at those. And then again, I try to retweet and create content that will engage the public.
Should we rename this Moving into the 21st Century Initiative? Or?
I think that's appropriate.
I have a question. This is Commissioner Vargas.
Commissioner Vargas, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And so there is a new legislation in the state of California as it relates specifically to elected officials and social media, right? And likes and not likes, and what that means in terms of committee meetings, et cetera. And so I don't remember seeing that specifically on the administrative policy, and I don't know if that's a separate guideline that we create for us as commissioners, just to make sure that we keep everything very clear. I know that, for instance, if Commissioner Desmond, Supervisor Desmond says, I support, opening up this or that, I can't like it or retweet it because it means something now that it didn't before. And so because we're both colleagues. So if there's a way, and I know there was the item on number F, right, that it says, if we could just be more specific or maybe do a training or something. I just want to make sure that we all stay out of trouble. I support this 100%, but I just want to make sure that we are all very clear of what our responsibilities are as well. Because I am an avid social media, participant. So
Were you thinking of items like concerning the Brown Act?
Yeah, so, but now the legislation states that, and it's still very, it's not very clear because there are some judgments, before the courts and trying to figure out what it means. But let's say,
Okay.
let's say myself and another commissioner, I say, oh, let's say I say, I support the environmental issue, right? And I say it a week before or something like that, and somebody else retweets it. They're not supposed to do that, and they're not supposed to like it because the new legislation says that you're actually showing the public your position even before you take it. And so there's some nuances to it, and I just want us to be very mindful of it. I think there's great things to be done with social media. We can each give our opinion, totally cool, nothing happens. But I think if we can get a training or something around it, it would be very helpful. The county of, the state county, what is it called? I can't remember what the organization is, but they've been doing a really great job and making sure that supervisors know what it is. But I would, happy to share it with you. And again, I guess my question is, I'm not sure if it needs to go into the policy or if this is just a separate training that we do for folks, information that we share. It's up to the commissioners to decide.
Well, I think the training that I've had with ethics, it's, that's one of the issues that we go over quite thoroughly as to what you can do with social media, basically with Facebook. And as you said, likes and dislikes and putting in your opinion. And that's why sometimes it's better not to utilize the 21st century. It can get you into trouble.
I think we've seen that out and about a little bit.
Yeah.
Any other?
So I will make a motion that we go with the recommendation on this social media proposal.
I'll
Sure.
second.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, how do we want to deal with the training part? We just make that a
This
side
is,
part.
I would suggest as part of the micro approach, we will vet it through Holly and probably touch base with Commissioner Vargas's staff on the particulars of the bill, because and I'm glad that you brought that up, Commissioner Vargas. I'm not aware of those requirements.
Yeah,
So
and it's some of the ethical stuff that we've all been learning. There's just some nuances now. Thank you.
Holly, do you have any comments?
Yes, that issue is for the first time, the legislature wrestled with legislative bodies interacting on social media, and how can they do that without running afoul of the Brown Act? And so what I would suggest is that we just plan at the next agenda. I mean, I'll clear this with the executive officer to see if we have time, that I can just give you a very brief overview of the limitations, what you can and cannot do under that legislation. And it's essentially trying to prevent having a serial meeting, which we all know you can't have a daisy chain or a serial meeting, which is harder to do in person, much easier to do online, sharing likes, forwarding, retweeting outside of a meeting.
This seems like it still relates back to the Brown Act, Holly, right?
It is a Brown Act. Yeah, it was a change to the Brown Act. It was an amendment to the Brown Act that provided specific guidelines on what legislative body members can or cannot do on social media. The interesting part, well, I won't take up time right now, but I think, a 10-minute presentation from me at the next meeting so that everybody here has the benefit of sort of the cheat sheet guidelines on how to stay in compliance with the Brown Act as it relates to social media. That's the perfect way to handle it.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Appreciate that.
Keen, can we get that added to the agenda then? Could we?
If Holly can do it, it's on the agenda.
Okay, then. Your motion would be in order now, Barry.
Oh, yeah. So I do make a motion that we adopt the recommendations from staff on this social media.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please, Tammy.
Commissioner Desmond,
Yes.
Commissioner Wells,
Yes.
Commissioner Salas,
Yes.
Commissioner Willis,
Aye.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Commissioner Kate,
Yes.
Commissioner Vargas,
Vargas, yes.
Commissioner Vanderlin.
Yes.
It's 8 in favor, 0 opposed, The motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Priscilla. Very nice presentation. Look forward to hearing from you a little more on each of these items. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if I'm still on track here, it's item
7C, I guess.
7C, create an ad hoc committee on office space options and needs. Keen?
Thank you, Chair. I'll do a very brief presentation, and we kind of touched upon it earlier, but there is this variable out there with respect to the current lease that LAFCO has maintained for the last 10 years or so with the County of San Diego that has given us space at the Operations Center. Is due to expire in August of this year. There may be an opportunity to stay with the county, albeit at a different adjusted cost. Nevertheless, as Commissioner Kate had mentioned earlier, maybe this is the time we at least be aware of our options outside of the county structure. And so my request of the commission, and in particular of the chair, is for you to consider creating an ad hoc committee to work with staff on exploring options relative to the baseline of staying at the county, and do so perhaps over a few virtual meetings. And the idea is by June, have an idea of what we're going to do. And I would add, maybe this is also an opportunity to explore becoming a landlord. And if the price is right, at least seeing what it would be to actually buy our own office building, given it's a pretty safe bet that LAFCO will be here over the next 10, 50 years or so. So things to think about, but ultimately, Chair, looking for a three-person committee, perhaps of different categories. And as chair, it'd be great if you would consider certainly serving.
Yeah, I was just curious, on owning a property, we could save money in the long run.
Any other
owning a
comments?
property.
Yes.
I'm in favor of the idea. I think owning is always better than renting.
All right. How are you on forming an ad hoc committee to be our explorers for us?
I think you should do it.
Okay.
It's a joke. Yeah, I'm glad to help.
Okay. So what I'd like to have on the committee is representation from the cities, the counties, and probably the public/district, which I'm stepping up to fill that slot. So are there any others that have a passion to serve on an ad hoc committee to go out and stomp around the county?
I will volunteer if
Okay, Barry, we're looking for a city or county member.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's okay. Any city people jumping up and down on this? No, I know you all have busy lives, so.
Sure, I'm willing to serve unless Mary wants to.
No. I got too much to do.
Yeah, I got a lot to do too, but I'll take that on.
Okay, Commissioner Wells, thank you very much. We need someone from the county. There's only, what, two of you?
Well, I think the county is a great landlord, to be honest with you.
You have a bias going in.
I was gonna say, yeah, they may be prejudiced.
Well, also,
But again, they might give you a better deal.
just
They
as-
He
you're right, Mary.
may be right in the sense that at this time, it may make more sense to rent than buy because of the situation for commercial real estate. So I don't have a bias. I just I think you should look at it.
I'm happy to take a spot if Supervisor Desmond wants. If you want two city people, I'm happy to take it.
Yeah, well, it's going to cost you $10,000 though more, Chris.
So,
good IOU.
Commissioner Cates and Commissioner Wells, you both agreed to step up. Is that correct?
If need be, I've got a lot to do. If Chris has time, wants to do it, I'm happy to acquiesce.
Well, Barry would like to jump in as well, even though it wouldn't be the city member, but that could work, or the county member. If we can't fill each of those slots, I think we have enough people that put on the different hats and can step out there. The idea for the ad hoc committee would be to get some different voices, different thoughts and ideas. And some of you may even there's this pocket place over here that may work for us. And this whole process may give us some negotiating room with the county in terms of staying there, what that would do, and maybe looking further out of when we could move in. Because I agree with the others that have talked about owning the building. I think that would be the ultimate thing. Whether this is a good time to do it or not, I have no idea. So, Keen, what do you think? Is that something? I'm sorry, go
Andy,
ahead.
I'll be happy to step up as a county representative. I'd be looking out for whatever the best interest of LAFCO is. So, but
I know you would, Jen, as long as,
I don't think we've been a bad landlord, but whatever works out best.
well, I think Keen would agree that you've been a very good landlord. It's just that the lease is coming up, so let's take advantage of the opportunity. So we would have Commissioner Wells, Commissioner Cates, and Commissioner Desmond. Is that correct? No, I'm sorry. I'm going to be in there somewhere. So
I think what I heard is Chair Vanderlyn, you will appoint yourself, Commissioner
okay.
Desmond on behalf of the county, Commissioner Kate on behalf of the cities, and that will be our 3 members. And given Barry's interest, I bet we could at least, from staff perspective, make sure that he's in the loop, just from my perspective. But that would be the committee, and we'll do our best to minimize the amount of time going forward. Holly, do we need an actual roll call, or can the chair just make those appointments and we're good?
The chair can make those appointments.
We're
Okay.
good.
Make it so, number 1. So, okay. Thank you for that. And yeah, Barry, we look forward to have you serve on there as well. So I know you have a lot of contacts in the county as well. So this kind of have some fun with this thing and see what's out there, see what the weather is. Okay.
Would you list the people again, Chair?
I'm sorry.
Would you list again the people that you appointed? I got.
I'll go ahead. So it's Chair Vanderlyn, Commissioner Desmond, and Commissioner Kate is the ad hoc committee. And then I offered up, just to keep Commissioner Willis in the loop, that I would make sure one-on-one that Barry is getting vetted on the process to keep people aware. But we want to keep it to 3.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all, and thank you for stepping up to serving. Okay, that's all we have on the regular agenda then. Executive Officer Report, Keen.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Commissioner announcements, requests. I think
I would just say that I'm continuing to contact each district specifically to get their views on things. I met with UEMA last week. It's just really important to get so many different perspectives on all the issues coming up. So I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to get to eventually all districts. I'm going to get to every single one.
Okay, just a thought we might want to consider is that one of the commissioners volunteer. I know you don't need another meeting, but to go to the special district advisory, is there still a city district advisory committee, Keen?
There is, in fact, we will be holding our next quarterly meeting, I believe, in 2 weeks from this Friday.
Okay.
And
Does anyone
that will
have
be
any interest in
televised.
attending those, the city and the district advisory committee meetings? It might be, I don't know whether it's ever happened or not, whether we've had a specific person assigned to go to those meetings. I think it might be something to consider. If you send me the information on the 1 in 2 weeks, I'll see if I can attend that.
Yeah, I might want to attend that also.
Barry, if you'd like to be the liaison there, that's fine. Just let us know. I think that would be a great idea. They might throw us out of the room, but at least
no, I really think it's important just to hear what the thoughts are of what's.
Well, if that became a standard set thing, like things like the funding fees for the LAFCO, those things would be a lot more current. They would it wouldn't be just a once a year kind of a contact. So thank you for doing that, Barry, and give us a report back on how
Yeah, so well, Keen, would you send me the link on that meeting if you have it?
I will.
Okay.
Okay, is there anything else to come before us today? Yes, Joe.
Yes, I have a report on the Cal LAFCO Legislative Committee meeting that was held in February. As of that date of the 19th of February, there was already 1,926 bills introduced, and Cal LAFCO is tracking and reviewing about 415 of those, basically to sort out those which are going to have some kind of an impact on LAFCOs themselves. One of them, AB 339, if that moves forward, one of the kickers is that it requires that access to meetings, agendas, reports, etc., be translated into all languages for which 5% of the population in the area is governed by local agencies. The real kicker is the fact that you cannot have a translator on call. They have to be a staff member. So instead of having 8 employees, LAFCO may be required to have 9, and hopefully that's a multi-language. But it's interesting on 2 conferences. This one, there was supposedly the author, who is Lee. There was going to be no movement on it. He was steadfast. Another with a renowned lobbyist in Sacramento said that he was taking amendments. So this is one of those bills that just can't kind of write the number down, and we'll see what flushes out come about June with the various amendments. The other one is AB 361. That has to do with the Brown Act requirements for teleconferencing. Those have all changed from what they were prior to COVID, and now they're looking at making those exceptions to be in the Brown Act and be able to use those without having a particular emergency. The other one is that really probably affects us too is SB 55 by Stern, which actually prohibits the creation or approval of a new development in a very high hazard severity zone or state responsibility area. That would definitely have some impact on some of these annexations that are going forward. And then there's a couple others that probably are less impacted to the various LAFCOs. The CKH Protests Ad Hoc Committee, which I'm a member of, we met the first part of February, and a couple of the EOs took CKH. And as you know, the protest provisions are scattered throughout that document, and they put them all into their own separate section. And there was minimal conversation and discussion on that, and basically approved it. There was a couple minor technicalities, mainly semantics. So that one is still moving forward, and we do not have another meeting set as of yet. The other thing is, I'd like to thank staff for putting the page numbers on the agenda instead of just, the item number. I appreciate having those page numbers on there because it's easier to flip through and find a page number. So thank you for that. Those are my only comments.
Joe, question on the multi-language. How many languages are they wanting us to be able to handle?
However many, that's 5% of the population.
Oh, 5% of the population. Okay.
And I don't know what it is for voting, but I know the city of Vista has to produce their ballot in 4 different languages. And I don't know what that percentage, that's required by the voters. I don't know what that percentage is. So it depends. I mean, there's some areas where 5% of the population is a number of various languages. So that's the one that's going to be most impacted, mainly because it has to be an employee. And a lot of some of these requirements in that particular bill are also requirements of the state legislature, except that particular one. They are required to be able to translate their documents into the various languages, but they do not have to have a person on staff for, the various languages.
And the state's going to fund that, right?
Pardon?
The state is going to pay for that?
Yeah, right.
I guess not. Yeah. Okay, anything else to come before us?
There goes our hour of discussion on the budget if that comes about.
There you go. And Joe, thank you very much for serving on the Cal LAFCO board and on the Ledge Committee and the other things you do. That's quite a thing you're biting off. And how many years have you been doing that now?
On Cal LAFCO?
Yeah.
4.
Well, thank you. That's
with you.
not quite as much traveling now with the COVID, but certainly a lot of traveling. And Holly and Keen, thanks for kind of keeping me on course. I was straying off in the weeds a few times, so I appreciate you bringing me back. And staff, it was great staff reports. Keen, your staff is really coming together. I'm very impressed with how well they present. They're very articulate and knowledgeable, and that's great. And I too appreciate the numbers. I don't get lost quite as much. And also having it stapled together kept me from having to get on the floor and pick all the pages back up. So if there's nothing else, Commission, sorry for the, I think Keen estimated this meeting would be about 45 minutes. I've at least doubled that. So still working on it, being a little more concise in my comments. But thank you all and have a great month. Very look forward to your report back on the advisory committees. That's really great that you're going to do that. And Keen, you'll send us out information regarding our ad hoc committee and when we're going to start and how we're going to do it.
We will, and I believe Priscilla will tweet it out too. So you may not want to like it, but at least you can get it that way too.
Oh, we'll love it, Keen. Thank you. Anything else then? Thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful day and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andy.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.